Hey everyone! Thank you for joining us for the next episode of our GitHub Copilot CLI hands-on series. My name is Anna. I'll be your producer for this session. I'm an event planner for Reactor, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenters to answer live. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Reactor channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speakers for today. Dan and Chris, thank you both so much for joining.
Well, welcome everyone. We are glad to be back and seeing y'all. So some of you hopefully joined us last week. So we're on episode 3 of this series. We have one more tomorrow once we get done with this one. But if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. We'll kind of catch you up on some links and things like that if you didn't join us last week. But before I do that, let me introduce myself, and I'll turn it over to Chris for a little bit as well. So my name is Dan Wallin, and I'm a cloud advocate at Microsoft, and actually a huge fan of Copilot CLI. I'm one of those that if I don't like something, I wouldn't say that, but I really like it now. They've done some amazing work on it. But with me, I have my colleague, Chris Noring.
Thank you, Dan. And yes, pleasure to be here. My name is Chris Noring, worked with Dan now for many, many years. So yeah, we're very happy to give you this streaming series of the Copilot CLI. And just like Dan, I think I was a bit of a slow convert, but now I spend all my time in CLI. I think I have 4 to 6 different terminal instances open at all times, working on a feature, a refactor, a bug, or what have you. So what do we have today, Dan? What are we going to talk about?
Yeah, so a quick review first off. We're going to talk about skills to answer your question quickly. But so last week, if you're just joining us this week for the first time, last week we went through kind of the core concepts of the CLI. We went into the developer workflow with it, debugging, code reviews, things like that you could do with the CLI. And then we also went into agents. And we'll actually touch on some of that today. So I just want to, if you're here for the first time, no worries, because what we're going to cover applies whether you're brand new or not brand new. And it's like really cool stuff. Anyone that likes the movie The Matrix, and you remember how you could just like plug in and fly a helicopter all of a sudden, that's kind of today's topic of where we're going with skills. So with that, let me move forward here just a little bit and give you some links. So those that were here last week will be going to the same course, the GitHub Copilot CLI for Beginners course. If you have not gone through the kind of prereqs for these sessions, the CLI is really easy to get installed. There's multiple options, actually. You could do NPM or Winget or Homebrew or even a script you can run. But really all you need is a GitHub account and then a Copilot license to be able to run it. Now, if you don't have that, we're going to be demoing everything live today. So you'll see it in action here as we move along. Now, I want to call your attention, especially those of you that maybe didn't join us last week, to the 2 links down here. There's 2 ways to actually get to the course. The first is the repo, and that's what I'm actually going to be showing you today. And that's the GitHub repo where this lives. But there's also kind of a web-friendly version on Awesome Copilot. And Chris, real quick, just for those that maybe weren't here last week, give us a quick rundown on like what's Awesome Copilot all about, just in case they don't.
Yeah, totally, Dan. So Awesome Copilot is our repository that showcases a bunch of, well, for the lack of better word, skills. So there's a lot of things in there, like prompts, but also skills that we're going to cover today. But anything and everything you can imagine just to make you successful using GitHub Copilot and also the CLI. So definitely check out that repo because it has so many recipes in there. So yeah, and the link is right there.
Yeah, so definitely take a snapshot, grab that link, however you do it, because that's where we're going to be working out of today. And what are we going to cover? Well, in a nutshell, a lot of times you might find yourself, especially in today's AI world, if you're working with Copilot or even ChatGPT, you might find yourself typing things over and over and over, and you're like, there's got to be a better reusable way to do this. And so we're going to talk about that. That's kind of today's topic. Or, what are AI skills? How do they work? Last week we covered agents. Like, what's the difference between an agent and a skill? And then we'll look at some custom skills that are part of this course and show you that it's really just Markdown for the most part. A little of what they call front matter at the top, but then it's just Markdown. It's just text. And so they're really easy to write, easy to work with, and we'll show you all that. Now, before we dive in, Chris, how do you what's your, I gave the matrix example, but what's your kind of analogy? How do you think of skills?
Yeah, so thanks for that question, Dan. So I kind of think about it as my early days in the kitchen. For those of you who know me, I like to cook. And I noticed that I got different results every time. I burned some things, too much salt and some other things. So, of course, once I learned to follow a recipe, I got, kind of the same result every time when I was going to bake a cake or what have you. So I kind of see skills as a repeatable list of steps that I'm going to follow every time to get that brownie or software, whatever I try to build. So yeah, recipes.
And it's too bad you don't live closer, Chris, because I know you do cook and you're probably really good. But I'd be like, hey, come on over. I'll provide the ingredients, and you bring your skills. And that's really what it's all about, though. It's like if you were to invite Chris to your house, he has the skills, he has the recipe, and he has the knowledge. He's like the chef. That's like an agent. But then he could cook a bunch of different recipes. And some of those recipes might be actually pretty involved. And that's what skills can do for you. So with that, let's dive right in. So for those that haven't seen the course, and again, the links are, the one I'm at right now is this bottom one, gh.io/Copilot CLI course. And if you haven't been to it before, I'll just give you a really quick run through. We have covered, if I go down to the agenda here, we've covered up through chapter 4 now. So today we're going to cover this automate repetitive tasks. That's the skills. Tomorrow morning, morning for me, same time, we're going to cover MCP servers. And then if we have time, we'll touch just briefly on this last one, just putting it all together. But for today, I'm going to go to chapter 5 here, and we're going to learn about the skill system. So Chris gave the analogy of recipes, which is a great analogy because obviously if you work at like a really fancy restaurant in, let's say, Paris, that's super well known, highly rated, has the best chefs in the world, things like that. They're going to have some really specialized set of skills because they have to be able to reproduce, those good dishes over and over and over. And that's really what we're talking about here, is that same thing. Now, another analogy, and I'll kind of go to last week real quick. So last week we talked about something called agents. And I mentioned that if I needed the window behind me here, if I needed that repaired, well, I'm going to hire someone who's a specialist with windows, obviously. I'm not going to bring in an electrician to fix my windows. Vice versa. If I don't know, let's say I want to add on to the house somewhere out here, then I'd probably bring in a contractor, a builder, and they would be like the agent. But then let's say they're really good at building extensions to houses. Like they have the recipe, if you will. They know how to do that. They can do it quickly. They do it well. It's high quality, all those type of things. Well, as they're doing it, they'll probably be using some drills. And so as you all know, drills have different bits, different attachments you can put on. That's like a skill. Right? Like I actually recently had to drill through some concrete. This one I did on my own. And of course, originally I just tried using a regular drill bit, like one that would go through wood. Let me just tell you, it doesn't work so well on concrete. You do have to get a concrete bit. You have to have the skill, which is like it's more durable, it's bigger, things like that, to be able to go through the concrete, right? So that's a different skill than going through the wood. And that's kind of how you can think of these. So if we transition real quick to coding, you have a commit skill, you have generate test skill, you have a code review skill, and things like that. So Chris, would you agree that we could just reuse these in different ways?
Yeah, 100%. And I also wanted to add shortly that think about it this way, right? You're dealing with so if you think about you as a human, you are probably learning that, hey, I need to build a database first, then an API, then a front end. So you're going to follow a set of steps every time. So you as a human is predictable, but then when it comes to machines, they're going to make stuff up and they're going to do it differently each time. So even if you provide it with, whatever context, they will still make things up. So in order to narrow their choice, that's why we provide them with guidelines and with skills to make sure that things are repeatable. So I just thought about that, Dan, as you were talking, because the main issue we are trying to address is to restrict agents to make sure that they don't make stuff up. I don't know if you agree with that, but
yeah, totally. And you're going to see that once you get into skills, you tend to use a lot of them. I have way too many installed, and there's pros and cons of that, by the way, that we'll talk about. All right. So with that, let me move on down here, and let's talk a little bit more about these attachments, these drill bits, if you will. So again, translating to technical terms now, let's get out of the drill world. We might have a special way when we do commits. If we do that through the CLI, which I'm going to start up here on the right in just a moment, we might have a way where, Chris, if you and I are on the same team, that we could say, hey, generate a commit message for me. But if that's all we said, what's it going to generate? It could be anything, right? Whereas if our team has very specific processes for generating those messages, we could make a skill. Chris could have it on his machine. I could have it on my machine, and now we're consistent. And so that's kind of the recipe concept, if you will. Or let's take security audits. Let's say that before you check your code in, that your team kind of has a rule that you will manually run a security audit, and then probably with your automated CI/CD processes, you would do the same thing again. But let's say that Chris and I manually review our code, and there's very specific set of security steps we have to go through. Again, like a recipe or like a specialized drill bit. We don't want to have to type all that every single time, because a lot of times this could be multiple like paragraphs of data or bullet points. And I don't know about you, Chris, I don't want to copy and paste it either, right?
No, totally. I mean, I remember this MCP apps I was trying to create. And if you ever try to create those, you know that it's pretty involved, right? So if I can have a skill for those 20 or so steps, give me, you know what I mean?
Exactly. All right. So another way you could think of this is a lot of you are probably into gaming. And as your character progresses, you can basically give them additional skills, right? You can level up in essence. That's kind of what this is too. It's like as you progress using AI tools, you end up getting more skills and more skills and more skills that can do these different things. So now you're just, I don't know, more prepared to do battle maybe for the work. All right, so to get started, I'm going to fire up Copilot here, and we're just going to kind of walk through the chapter like we've been doing. And again, if you joined us just real quick, if you joined us a little late this morning or evening, wherever you're at, afternoon, go to this first link. Either one will actually work, but this gh.io/copilot-cli-course, that'll actually get to where I am right now. And then we are in the skills chapter, which is chapter 5. You'll see that right in the README of the repo. So I'll give everybody a sec one more time just to make sure everybody has it. And then we will dive in here. Okay. So with that, I fired up Copilot, and basically it's telling us, hey, type skills. And I'm not even going to type anything else. I'm just going to say skills. But you'll notice as I type /skills, so we're back to our slash commands that we covered last week, I can list I can get info about a skill. I can add skills. I can remove them. Reload's really useful. You might manually copy a skill into a specific folder that Copilot looks for. And then you try to use it and you're like, what gives? Chris, it's not working. And it's because Copilot didn't know about it. So you could say reload, and that would just refresh them. That way you don't have to like exit Copilot and come back. So that's a nice one. But I'm just going to type skills and let's see what happens here. See all this? I have a lot of skills. I'll kind of scroll through these, and these are a lot of the skills. I work a lot with Azure, for example. So you'll notice I have a bunch of Azure skills down here. I have some video skills. I even have a stock market one, which is just a way to do some research. If you're looking, student review. So when this course that we're looking at right now, the reason I have this one called student review is because I wanted to have a skill that had very specific steps that if you are brand new to this content and you're looking at it for the first time, we need to kind of walk through it with that mentality. So I created a skill that has steps that, hey, you're a student, you expect this, like the recipe for what a student would expect. And then I'd run through these chapters with that skill, and then it would give me back suggestions, and say, hey, Dan, you should maybe change this. This is too complex. You're missing this, those type of things. Now, one of my favorite skills, see this image right here? I'll tell you how that was generated. If we go down, I don't think, oh no, it's right there. It's called Technical Image Generator. And this actually calls up to Azure Microsoft Foundry. And it calls a GPT image model. And I basically just say / and you'll see how to call skills in a moment, but / technical image generator. And then say, I want to generate a skill that looks like, like for this one, I don't know what I typed, but that looks like a game level up with, fire and a sword and a Merlin hat or whatever. And then it will actually go out and behind the scenes, it'll even call Microsoft Foundry, get the image and then store it locally. And that's how that image was done, was through this skill. Super cool. If we have time, maybe I'll demo that really quick. It's not part of the course, but all right. So moving on down, that's how you can list your skills. Now, I do want to talk with you, Chris, real quick. Skills are pretty efficient, right? When it comes to the overall context they take up, but all my skills are checked here. And there could be a downside to that, right? When it comes to our context, if we go to /context here. I'll go ahead, Chris.
Now, I was just going to say that it's like with skills, like it is with tools, right? As soon as you start adding too many things, you have to be very careful when you do so, because too much context in an AI model could be bad also. Because, imagine this. Imagine a human talking to another human. You tell them a story that takes, 20 days to tell. They're going to be very confused. And it's like, Chris, what are you even saying? What is the message here? Right? And it's the same thing with I wouldn't compare an AI model to human, but I think you still get my point across, is you shouldn't enable too many things. And number 2 is be very careful about title and description for a skill. So the AI model knows to use that skill over that skill. So those are my 2. Don't enable too many, and be very descriptive of how you name them and describe them.
And what Chris just said, we'll talk about the title and description in just a moment, actually, super important. Now, that information does get loaded. You'll notice that right off the bat, I haven't even done anything yet. And that's because I enabled everything, by the way. I normally wouldn't have everything enabled, but I wanted to show you, look at this. 30%, see these circles right here? That's all my tools. That's skills type stuff. That's all already been loaded. So this is the room I have left, these dots. Now, I still have plenty of room. And it's not like I'm running out of room. But if you find that, let's say, and again, to get here, I typed /context. And this, again, is your context window. Like, how much room do we have left to send to the AI? If you see that this is all filled up and you have 2 dots left and you're just starting out, you probably need to turn some stuff off. you might have too much enabled. So, all right, let me just clear that. In fact, you'll notice right up top, I have 86 skills enabled right now, which is a fair number. It's not, I'm not going to say it's too much because I have plenty of context left, but it is a lot. So that's something you want to keep an eye on. And so that /context is really useful there. All right. Now, I want to mention that Copilot does come with some built-in skills that just happen behind the scenes. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. We're going to spend most of our time on custom skills, like how could you do your own thing for your team and things. But just kind of know it does have some built-in ones. So let's do this. We have, if I go over to our samples, we have different languages here, and one of those is Python. And notice we have this books.py and bookapp.py, and this is just a really simple CLI app that's part of the project. It's kind of like very imperfect on purpose so that we can find different things. So when the course content here says check books.py against our quality checklist, okay, let's see what happens here. And I'm going to show you another folder in just a moment, but let's just paste this in. Now, what can we do, Chris? We can make this, oops, I didn't mean to switch that. We can make this just a little bit more specific, right? On books.py with our context. And those here last week, you might recall that there's an @ symbol you can put. And if you put that, and let me just take this out, actually. I'll paste that back in a moment. If I go to @samples, for example, / and then I could go into the sample, and actually mine's not showing it for some reason, but that's all right. Or I could just come on over and let me just Control A that. And if we do this, it'll kind of figure it out. But what that'll do is load that file into the context. Now, even if I don't put the @ it's really good at saying, okay, there must be a books.py project somewhere. But let's go ahead and run this. And it says, run it against our quality checklist. Now, what this is going to do is start thinking, and look what happened here. Skill, code checklist. Where did that come from? Well, that's one of those 81, I think I had skills installed. And we'll look at it in a moment. Now, it is prompting me here. This action may read from the following path. Is that okay? I'm going to say, yeah, we're in the project, so let's just trust that. Now it's calling some tools. So it's searching for books.py. I found it. And here's our quality checklist skill. Now notice there's some good stuff. There's some bad stuff. But the beauty of this is Chris could have this on his machine, and Anna could have it on her machine, and I could have it on my machine. And we could even run this in the cloud, maybe a part of a CI/CD process or something. And in doing so, now we have a very consistent way to kind of see, what's going on with this. Now, I'll show you some others here, but if we were to generate tests, does everybody generate tests the same way? Probably not, right? Chris, you might have a very specific way of generating your tests, I would guess.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, if it's Python, right, it's Pytest, I think that's fair to say. But even then, right, you might name them a certain way or, set things up differently. So, yeah, definitely makes sense, I think, to have a skill for setting up tests, both for you, but also for your team, probably, right? Because I have a feeling your team and or your company have some general guidelines that it could be good to encode,
Yeah, exactly. Now, real quick, if I go to context now, notice we ate up just a little bit. See that filled in dot right there? That's the context we just ate up with all this stuff that it just processed. So not a lot, but it's there. So I'm going to clear that, and we're going to kind of start from scratch here. That just cleared out in fact, if I go back, let me try that again. Context. There we go. Notice it kind of cleared things up here a little bit. And oddly enough, notice this even dropped a little. Okay. I'm actually not sure why that dropped, to be honest, but that's good. That's not bad at all. So let's paste this guy in. Oh, I don't know why it does that. I did not copy and paste that, but I clicked on it and it copies it for some reason. Let me copy that. Yeah, it's like I did not want that, but thank you. What are the code quality issues? All right, well let's run this and see what happens here. So thinking, and by the way, you'll notice I'm on Claude Sonnet 4.6. Which file would you like me to review for code quality issues? All right, well, let's just type books.py. And now it's going to have to go kind of find that. All right, do you want to allow access? Yes. Let's let it do its magic here. And all right, look what it found again. Code checklist. Okay, so notice up here we said quality checklist, and this gets back to what Chris said with title and description. I think you said, Chris, which is correct.
Yeah.
This is kind of doing the same thing. It's just asking a different way. Now, let's talk about why was that skill automatically triggered. Notice I didn't type / code checklist. You could do that. I could actually, if I just always want to run that skill for a prompt, I could say / code checklist, evaluate at books.py or whatever for quality, something like that. That would be another way to do it. But notice I didn't type that. It just figured it out. So what's going on there? Well, see this .github/skills reference? Let's go take a look, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
So let me open this, Chris, and you can walk us through it. So notice we have a skills folder. Now this is local to the project.
Mm-hmm.
You can also do this at the .copilot, the more user level, so that you just have skills that every project on your machine would use. But let me open this, Chris, and I'll kind of have you walk through, because you mentioned title and description, right? Well, walk us through.
Yeah, totally. So the first thing you saw is what Dan said, right? There's a certain directory level to this, and every single skill has its own folder, and in each of those folders, there's a skill.md. So that's how you start. But we also have IDE support for adding that. So if you wanted to add a skill via command palette, we could do it, or we could just go in and manually create that file. That's kind of up to you, but I prefer it. If there's a faster way of doing it, command palette, I would use that. But so what you're seeing here at the very top of the file is name and description. So name is somewhat important, right? Because as Dan was saying, he was just typing a prompt and it figured out what to do. Part of that answer why it found that one is because you said something around code or checklist. The other bit is your description, because here it goes into more detail and say, this is what I'm actually going to use this skill for. So these are all hints that is, the AI is going to take into consideration. Am I using this skill over here or that skill over there? And then, Dan, you see how there's a bunch of Markdown, right? And did you write all of that yourself, or maybe you cheated a little bit and talked to the AI?
I might have cheated a little, had the AI help me.
So, so I was saying here, this is all Markdown, and I would say this, don't write all of that yourself, because your AI knows what good looks like. It knows how to follow instructions. So I would just go in and tell the AI, I'm creating a skill like this, suggest me a draft Markdown, and then you can always go in afterwards and tweak it a little bit if you want, right? But I've noticed that I don't argue with the AI. I just say, solve this problem for me, give me a Markdown. I'm sure you know what you're doing. I don't know if you agree with that approach, then. But
no, I do the same thing. This is what I find the AI really helpful for. I always evaluate what it generates. Right now, I'm not going to say that means I'm looking at every single line, because sometimes it's just like a description, and I just glance at it and go, yeah, that sounds good. But like a lot of times it'll come up. Notice these checkboxes here. And by the way, see how we have kind of checkboxes over here? And notice how it says pass or fail. Real quick, this is the output format. And so we're literally telling the skill, hey, when you run, here's how I want you to output what you find. And notice this matches up. We have a code checklist here. There's our code checklist. There's the file name. I said file name. Code quality, input validation, testing, and then summary down at the bottom. And see how that all matches up? Like, how cool is that? You write it once, you run it, and boom, you just always get the same format being output every time, which I think is super cool. And, we could even go in and say, please evaluate the, I'm just going to say code checklist, but actually it's a skill.markdown. So I'd have to give it the path. That's the file name. You'll see that right up top here. But if I mouse over it, Yeah, there's the path right there. So .github/skills, name of the skill. That's the folder Chris mentioned. And then you have the skill markdown, and you can even have other resources in there. You could have documentation. There's even some scripts you could put, lots of stuff you can do. But I could even say, please evaluate. And if I gave it the full path to that skill, we could even make it better. Like this, I'm not going to say this is like ready for, prime time. This is a demo. And so we could certainly, in probably the span of 5-10 minutes, Chris, make this a lot better. So pretty cool. All right. So moving onward and upward here, to go back to what Chris said, the name and description, especially the description, are really, really important, because if I go back to my context, these kind of circles up top here, that's this stuff and other stuff that's actually loaded. And what it is, what it does know about is like the description. Otherwise, when I type do a quality check, how would it know to call this? Well, it sees words like checklist, quality. Notice quality is in there multiple times. Bugs. So I could probably even go in, we'd have to try it and say, check for bugs and report or something. And it probably would still invoke this. Security issues, best practices, all those type of things. So very cool. So Chris, I want to go back to what you started off with today. You said it's kind of like a recipe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, totally. So
kind of what we have?
Yeah, I would definitely say so, right? Because if you're looking at the checklist with boxes, that's a bit like, okay, first off, turn on the oven and then start adding flour and all the, dry ingredients is in a bowl and so on. So yeah, I can definitely see that, step by step. And I really like the fact that you can define those brackets like you do from line 12 to 17. Because, first time I used that, it's like, oh, wow, that's how it knows where it is. You know what I mean? It's like a to-do list of things, and it just checks everything. And I also would point out, and I think you mentioned this before, the output. It's very important that the output becomes what you want it to be, right? Because agents have a tendency to do text. And even if it's a human, I think it's important that we see things in a certain format, or we're like, what am I even looking at? And this becomes even more important if the result of a skill is going to be fed into some downstream code, right? So if you can control the output, you should do so. So I would say control it at all times. Just remember, who is the consumer? Is it Dan or Chris, or is it a downstream system?
Excellent advice. I wholeheartedly agree. One little pro tip for everyone, especially if you're new to this, is that whether you're generating plans, which are just Markdown documents, skills, even agents are also Markdowns we looked at last week. Having these kind of like, it's almost like a to-do list or something like that, right? Like a checklist. It keeps the agent, your AI, it helps to keep it on track, and it doesn't go off track as often if you can give it very specific things to check for. And notice we're being very specific about code quality. Here's what to do for input validation. Here's what to do to check for testing. And we give it these step-by-step, if you will. And it would almost be, Chris, going back to your recipe, and given that you actually know how to cook, I'm pretty good at like toast, Chris. That's about it. Cereal, microwave dishes. I'm good at those. But anyway, it would be like, again, inviting Chris over to my house, and he goes, all right, here's all the ingredients you need to buy me, Dan. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's how we're going to know if it's good. Like, here's my steps I go through to taste test or, whatever. And so that's kind of the process of a skill. That's what we have. So if we go back real quick, notice we have code checklist. We have the commit message. Here's another one. Let's look at this real quick. Generate a conventional commit messages. Use when creating commits, writing commit messages, or asking for git commit help. And then notice we have a format for it. We have the specific types we want to use. So a lot of times with commits, you'll see feat, fix, docs, those type of things. So we're saying that. We're giving it rules. Here's even some examples of how we want it to structure things. That very helpful for the AI. And then again, this is a pretty simple one, but you get the idea. Let's just open one more. Well, hello world is really basic. It literally is a hello world, so we'll skip that. But let's go to the Pytest one. All right, so generate comprehensive Pytest tests used when generating tests, creating test suites, or testing Python code. Again, see how, going back to what Chris said earlier, see how specific we are here on what we're doing with, we got to give it the details, the keywords, if you will, to know. Because if I come in here and say generate tests for, X, then now it should pick that up because we literally have generating tests in our description. Okay.
So I just wanted to add
sure.
quickly, because I think you showed something really important, Dan. So in that Markdown you were showing, you were not only showing just the Pytest, yeah. So on line 13 here, you are not only saying, hey, here's a bunch of text, but you're also saying use this specific tool. So you can be that granular, right? You don't have to just be high level description, but you can go in, say, use this method over that method. And I really love the fact that you show examples. You show example code, you show other type of examples that it needs, right? Because, and this comes back to us as humans. If I say something to you, depending on which context you have, you might actually think that I mean A when I actually mean B. And the more I show you examples, the better, right? So use this function, Chris, or use this input type, or use this format. So the more descriptive you can be, but again, use AI to populate all of this. But you just see here, to put an emphasis on this on line 13, you can specify specific methods even.
And as you mentioned, you can even specify code styles that you want. I could tell it I have to use this specific indentation, for example, for Python. Maybe we do it slightly different than others. I don't know. Yeah, and so I hope everybody gets the idea. I think you hit on something really good here, Chris. In the human world, if I were to come in, Chris, and say, I need you to generate some tests and for this project, and that's all I tell you. Mm-hmm. Am I going to get what I expected if that's all I give you? You're probably going to generate your way of doing it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that most likely you're going to say, hey, Chris, go and generate tests. And I give you the wrong test framework, according to you. I arrange the test in a different way. Maybe I don't group them the way you have intended, right? So there's a lot of missing context, a lot of assumptions made. So yeah, I'm sure you've had that in real life, Dan, and you just notice how important it was to just give people this, like, no, you do A, then B, then C, and then right.
Well, and so before coming to Microsoft, I used to work in the contractor world for 20 plus years. I know you have as well, Chris. And it's a really true story there. Some of you listening, your company might bring in contractors from time to time. And that's a world where if you don't give enough context, you're just asking for problems because they're going to do it the way they thought they should do it. And then you get the code and you're like, what the heck is this? This is not what I asked for. And then, a lot of times, if that's the case, it's probably my fault because I didn't provide you enough context, Chris. And that's the same thing with skills. Like you said, we need to provide that context. So excellent. All right. Well, let's move onward and upward here. So we just took a look at those and, worked with it. Now, we've already run some of these. Now, let me run this guy, though. So recall I said that if I do /skills, we can type list, but if you just type skills and hit enter, you can do it. And let me scroll. Oh, it's right there at the top, actually. Pytest Gen, right there. Okay, so that, I believe that was the name. Let's go back. And yeah, Pytest Gen. So see that right there, and you'll see the name is Pytest Gen. So if we wanted to, try this out and actually generate some tests, we totally could. We can just come on in. Let me re-grab this really quick. And just with that prompt right there, and this is the magic of skills, folks. again, if I had to replace this window behind me, or, I want that extension to the house, or I want to remodel a bathroom, I need somebody who has the skills for that particular topic, because, not any builder is necessarily good at remodeling bathrooms or fixing windows. They have to have the skills. They need that recipe. They need to know it well. And so you'll notice here, it's already saying tests exist, but fairly minimal. That is true. That's kind of on purpose, though. And so we're going to expand to full coverage. Now, let me scroll up, and there we go. See that? There's the skill. So it literally is invoking all this stuff in here. It should follow this type of format. We'll see. We'll let it run its course here. As it's doing, I'll tell you what, as it's doing this, let me, it's going to ask me run Pytest on, yeah, sure. I'm going to give it full permission here to do what it needs. Let me jump over. I'm going to show you, there's a bunch of tools out there now. One thing that's going to happen, in fact, it's done. You probably couldn't hear it. I have a little ding, and that's set up through what's called a hook, so that when it's done, I have it play a little bell sound, and that way I know it's done. Sometimes it runs for a while, and I'll, run to the restroom or whatever, and I'm like, ding, and I go, okay, it's done. I need to get back. This is a really nice, this is one of many. In fact, let me see if I can find where YouTube is. I'll put this in the, it's saying sign in. Hold on. Just 1 second here. Let me go to this other window.
It's funny when you mention that ding, Dan, right? Because it makes it sound like a recipe, right? Because you're waiting for that cake to be done in the oven. So in a sense, you've set it up that way, right?
Yeah, exactly. Ding, your oven, like it's baked, it's ready to go. That's a good analogy of the recipes. One thing that will happen, and it finished so fast that I didn't need to do this segue, but that's okay. We're already here. You will get a lot of skills. And if you work with multiple AI tools that support skills, now you'll go to some other AI tool and another, and maybe another. I alternate between tools. I use Copilot CLI as my main driver, but a lot of times I'll do other additional reviews and things like that with other ones like Codex, for example, I even use, or Claude Code I can use. And the reason I do that, they all have different ways of processing. They have different test harnesses, they call it. And then, of course, different LLMs and all that. And what will happen is I'll be like, oh, my skill's not on this one or this one. Skillshare is a way to sync. And I put a link to this in the chat, in the YouTube chat. So if you're on that one, you'll see it. This is just a really nice little tool that you can go in and actually sync your skills across all your tools on your machine. And so just to kind of show you really quick here, so I actually updated it last night. If I just type Skillshare, hit enter, you scroll to the top. This is Skillshare. And notice I can install skills. I can uninstall skills. I can sync skills. That's the big one. I could say Skillshare sync, and it will sync all my skills across all my different areas where I use AI on the machine, by the way. And then there's a push. I don't know where push is. It's in here somewhere. Might have missed it, but you can push up to a repo. And I actually have a private repo where I store like 80 or 90 skills I have that I use a lot. And then I can sync between machines as well. So I can pull it back down to another machine. Maybe I'm working on Linux today, for example, or Mac or Windows or whatever. So anyway, that is one tool. There are many others coming out that you can also use. I don't know, Chris, do you have any others you use by chance? I don't know if you do.
That is a good question. I don't think I'm using a tool like this, but I definitely should. Well, I was thinking, could I start a code space and just ask it to sync it and it's going to work, or would I need to log in somehow?
Yeah. You mean for the Skillshare?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, once you log into the code space, it should know about your GitHub account, and therefore Skillshare, if you you'd have to set it up in the code space. But yeah, you should be able to sync to a code space too. Yeah.
Nice. No, I just find myself these days using Codespaces more and more, right? Because it's just super fast machine, ready to go. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think tools like this will get a lot of people to use it, right? So hopefully everyone on the stream here sees today that you're going to create a skills for your entire life, right? You know, you showed me, Dan, how you were doing like the stock market. Maybe you do that for repairing your house or, you know, building your software. You can literally have your life inside of your GitHub repo if you wanted to. And these skills are what enables it.
Let me see. I haven't tried this one in a while, Chris, but you know, I did mention I have like the stock market research one. Let's say research the NVIDIA stock. Let's see what happens here. And by the way, here was the response it gave me for the test. Let's go while this is running. Let's go open this guy up. Let me close this. See all the green? That's all the new tests it generated for me. Now, normally from here, I would say review, please review the new test generated, you know, and I would do a code review on it, of course. But that's the kind of stuff it generates right there. That's all generated because of that skill, which is pretty cool. Now, it did invoke it. It's called Stock Market Sentiment Skill. So it's in researching right now, waiting for a background agent to do it. And I'm just going to cancel here because I'm not going to worry about that. But it's still running. I guess it's not going to let me cancel. But that's another skill. I mean, you literally could have skills for writing documents, writing blogs. In fact, Chris and I use those all the time for like quality of written material to do analysis of that. You could have, you know, skills for that. So anyway, I don't know why that won't let me exit. It really wants to do the research, so I'm just going to restart it. Let's fire that back up and keep going here. All right. So moving on down, we just generated a whole bunch of tests. You'll see again, this is all done through that skill. And if we look, it should follow the format you saw in the skill and, you know, all that good stuff. So these are beautiful. Now I'm going to run something. I'm going to kind of tempt fate here. I don't know if this will work or not, but we'll see. Remember I said, Chris, didn't I tell you? You watch, there'll be an update that comes out. The CLI updates almost daily, by the way, folks. And Chris can verify this. Right before we went live, I said, hey, I'm all up to date, but you watch, there's going to be an update. And there is.
And remember what I told you? Like, you're very brave to update right before the stream.
Yeah, well, I probably shouldn't have done that, but anyway. So let me run a skill. Remember I said I have this technical image generator. Now, this one does involve a little more setup because it needs to have an endpoint and a key to be able to call into a Microsoft Foundry. It's a GPT image. In fact, I haven't tried this one yet. I just put it in place, but it's GPT image 2.1. And it's brand new. Just, in fact, I just saw on social, I think yesterday. And so we have it on Microsoft Foundry already. But I need an image that summarizes and visually explains what AI skills are, and I don't know what they're for. Make it colorful and visual. Save the image to the root of my project. Now, I'm not going to promise this one's going to work because the image model is brand new and I haven't tested this yet. I think I have it in place on this project, though. I want to open my file that has it because it has my key and stuff. But look what it's doing. Technical image generator. This is the skill. Now it's going to ask, is it okay to hit the AI image endpoint? And I have that in an env file, an environment file. Let's hit yes. And, you know, it may or may not work, but you can see it's trying to work. We'll see what it does here.
Yeah, because I think image generators probably takes a little while. So I'd actually be super impressed if it manages to, you know, generate an image while we speak.
Yeah. We'll see. I'll let it kind of run in the background while we keep going. I just want to kick it off because notice it is prompting me like, can you hit the endpoint for Microsoft Foundry? I said yes. Is it okay to read the env? I said yes. Now it's saying, is it okay? Because the skill, here's what it's going to do. The AI and the skill did this. remember I said I want it colorful? Well,
Yep.
it did all of this. A colorful educational diagram explaining AI skills for GitHub Copilot CLI. And it even came up with a layout. Maybe you don't like this. And a lot of times I do have to reprompt it. Like I'll get an image back and be like, that's not really what I wanted. I'll be like, that's close, but I need to tweak this.
This is something I really love, by the way. Sorry for interrupting,
Yep.
but when
No.
I type a very short prompt, right, and you tell me, hey, you know what, the AI actually expanded this prompt to be something very detailed. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm a master at prompting. Like, I just want to give that high level 5-6 words, and you figure out the rest. So here's a great example of that in motion.
Yeah. Now it tried to call it, got an error, and said, "Oh, the endpoint already includes OpenAI / whatever." So now I think it's redoing the curl right here.
Nice.
Because I tell the skill do a curl command to call Microsoft Foundry, and then notice it has my API key. That's the placeholder for the API key. Let's keep going here. A lot of yeses on this one. This is a good test case, Chris, since I trust this one where I do the YOLO and just let it run. But
I have to say, though, I remember the early days of AI agents, and you told them to do something once. It's like, sorry, Chris, nothing for you. But these days, it's like self-healing. It's like, oh, you know what? I have 5 or 6 different ways I'm going to test. And, at the end of that, it actually succeeded, right? So that's another thing that just moves so fast. I don't know if you agree with that just 2 years back, super big difference.
Huge difference. Like you said, I mean, you can see right here, let me try using just the base endpoint. And it figured out that, oh, we had a problem. Let me try to adjust. Now it retried with the corrected URL structure, and we'll let it run here. So we'll kind of move on to the rest of this chapter here, and we'll let this run in the background. Hopefully it'll work. I don't know. I have not tried again this image model. GPT 1.5 is normally what I'd use, but I haven't tried this new one. So we'll see what happens. Okay, now I'll tell you what, while that's running, let me start up another Copilot. And remember earlier, Chris, we said that you can do, skills, right? And then you can list them, you can add or remove skills, things like that. And if I hit skills, I have all these skills. In fact, remember I said you could use it for like blogs and stuff? I use this one all the time just to scaffold out a structure. I'll give it a bunch of bullet points. Here's what I'm looking to write. Please scaffold this out. And then I'll go in and do the human, angle of it. But if you've ever hit writer's block, Chris, and I know you've done a lot of writing, we all hit writer's block where you're just staring at a blank screen, right? And how helpful is it to have AI just at least give you some ideas, right?
I have some crazy history of writing 70 blog posts in a year, and I think I can probably write 70 a day, right, with these AI tools. This was pre-AI. So I would say this on the blog skill, because very cool, first of all. Secondly, are you letting it learn from you? Do you have like a sample from one of your articles so it sounds like you, or?
I actually have it check my blog, and I have it go through and read it and learn my personality and style. Yeah. And by the way, I do want to emphasize, folks, I am not a fan. I have never once, because I blog a fair amount. I've never once published anything that AI just generated, because we've all seen this, right? We call it, the AI slop. And so skills are great, but you still got to add the human aspect. I would add, especially like when you're writing, things like that. But okay, now, in addition to that, remember earlier I said I don't have to actually just type a sentence. You'll see over here to the left, generate tests. It's actually not. Let me see. Is it called generate tests? I don't know if it's called that. I think it's Pytest or something like that. Yeah, Pytest Gen, actually. Or code checklist. Or I don't know if we have a security audit. I don't think we do. That's just a demo of one you could do. Those are all examples of, if you know the exact thing you want to do with the skill, instead of actually just having it try to figure out the skill, if you know the name of it, you could just type a slash, and then just like I did with technical image generator, boom, now type your prompt. Now, let's see what happened. It said it came back. I don't know why it's not letting me open that. We'll try over here. Let's see. Here we go. Moment of truth, folks. Hey, that's not that bad.
Now we're
That's
talking.
what it generated, folks. That's the brand new GPT image 2.1. What they are, why, what they do, how to use. That's actually pretty good. I might have to hang on to that, and who knows, maybe I'll add it to the course. But how cool is that, folks, that I typed like a couple sentences, and because the skill knows how to call Microsoft Foundry, imagine what you can do here. You know, maybe you don't want to generate images. You want to do something else, Chris. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, totally. I honestly, while you're showing me that, I'm like, can't we create a similar one for like PowerPoint? I don't know about you, but I'm not a super fan of creating decks. I need to do it for my job, right? But now I'm saying, hey, Dan created a skill here for image generation. Why can't we do PowerPoint? So yeah, I might come back to you in a couple of days and show you a tool, hopefully, or a skill.
Yeah. So hopefully everybody's kind of getting the idea. If I go back to how we started the session, for those that have seen The Matrix, they have to fly a helicopter, and they just basically plug in, get the knowledge instantly. It's like me blinking my eyes real fast, like movie speak. And that's like loading the skill directly into your brain, right? It's the same thing. It's just in this case, the brain happens to be the AI and the Copilot CLI here. But how cool is that? You can do some amazing things with it. You could generate slides for sure. I have a skill. Let's see. Let me type no, not blog. Let me type video. Well, I have Playwright Video Generator. That'll actually run Playwright to actually generate a video. Right here, video to workshop. We had a need. Let me just go to this guy. I'm not going to run it, but to take a video that someone made and convert it into a written version with screenshots from the video. Okay, so I made a skill, and it will literally generate written content from a video, and it'll have all the it'll basically take the text it finds from the video, which it does have to have the transcription for the video, but it'll take that text, generate a really professional looking like tutorial, and then embed screenshots from the video. Pretty cool, right? And that's a skill I have that I use. So, the list goes on. And Chris, what you mentioned with like PowerPoint, totally could do that. All right. The other thing, you can always just ask Copilot, like, what skills did you use for that last response? And it can tell you. Or what skills do you have available for security reviews? It can tell you, because maybe you have so many installed you can't remember, which is kind of the problem I'm having nowadays. Now, to wrap up, Chris, skills are very, very different than what we're going to talk about tomorrow, MCP servers, right? You want to give just a quick summary of the differences, which will be a good lead into tomorrow?
Yeah, 100%. So I kind of see skills as one-offs, right? They are very, very good at what they do. They follow a bunch of steps, but the moment comes when you ask it to do more than one thing, right? Because as you saw here, Dan kicked off a skill, it came back to you. But what if you're an agent that says, hey, you know what? I need to build a foundation. I need to build a house. I need to build a roof. I need to build the piping. There's a lot of things going on, in a bigger project, right? So when you have that, you want to lean into agents, because agents are a level higher up, so they can use skills. And as you can see here, if I were to redesign this image, I would put agents on top with skills underneath as branches. But there's also MCP servers, which are super cool. We're going to cover those tomorrow. But the idea is that you have a protocol that makes it easy to reuse skills that are meant for agents, right? And these skills might not live on your machine, but they could live over here. So imagine being an agent where you can just select from skills that you have in Dan's repo, or it selects from MCP server with tools, resources, and prompts that are over here. So by combining skills and MCP servers, we get a very capable agent. So for tomorrow, think about agents as the highest level being, using skills, using what's in an MCP server. An MCP server is really how we ship things easily in a global way. But yeah, all of that tomorrow, and we'll get a chance to repeat all of those things so you make sure that you know the difference between them. But skills, lower level, super useful. You saw Dan, 80 plus skills. Oh my God, that's a big context window. But you saw him, right? Automating his entire life, including the stock market. Very useful. You gave me so many ideas today, Dan, what I could build myself. But yeah, I'm looking forward to our talk tomorrow, right? So you can see how all of these moving parts fit together.
Yeah. So yeah, excellent explanation there, Chris. To kind of wrap up, you summed it up well. And this, I'll just go through this real quick. So as you can see, agents, they change how AI thinks. So again, you're changing to be the electrician specialty, the plumbing specialty, the builder specialty, whatever. Agents can use skills, but you can use skills, as you saw me do, totally on their own. You don't have to have an agent to use a skill. Like, it can be standalone. But they are auto-triggered instructions. So we generated tests. I generated an image. You could write a blog post, all those things we just talked about. And then MCP servers, which we'll talk about tomorrow, as Chris mentioned. Let's say I generated these skills or tests over here in this image. And now I want to create a PR, right? I want a pull request up in the repo. I can actually do that right from Copilot CLI because there's GitHub MCP, which we'll talk about that tomorrow, Model Context Protocol, functionality built right in. And you can install other things. A lot of us at work, we have external systems. AI doesn't know about those. With MCP, we can talk to those. And that's what we'll spend more time on tomorrow. So a lot of good stuff to cover in our last session. But this kind of breaks down what we just talked about. Agents change how AI thinks. Recipes, as I like Chris's analogy, provides task-specific instructions. And then MCP allows you to connect to external services, even databases, if you have the security to do that. All right, so we've already kind of gone through these guys. So I'm going to wrap up by going down. This has an example of like a team PR review skill. Maybe you want to do a review on that PR and you have a skill in place that your team wants this step, then this step, then this step to review it because you don't want to type this big list of things every time you want to review a PR. You have your team specific checklist, if you will. Perfect use case for a skill there if you wanted. All right, and then we've already talked about custom skills, and this is the location we looked at. But as I mentioned, if you want to store these at the user level, there's a .copilot folder, and it just sits on your system at a higher level, and it also has a skills folder, and that's where you can also store them. So I generally store mine at the user level, my reusable ones. Chris, I'm sure you do the same thing there. So, all right, and then there's some examples that we've already kind of done this live. So with that, I hope everybody has a much better idea about kind of how skills work. I'm going to jump to here to wrap up. So as mentioned, what we're going to do tomorrow, so please join us if you have the time, is jump into the MCP. And then if we have time, this is kind of, that's why we said a taste of Chapter 7, because I don't know if we'll have time or not, but this kind of brings all the course topics together, agents and skills and MCP and slash commands and all that fun stuff. So if we have time, we'll cover that. But the focus tomorrow is going to be on Chapter 6, MCP. So again, there are assignments at the end of each of these chapters. So if you get some time, go ahead and go to the course and go through that on your own. It's a great way to get this hands-on experience and try it out. So with that, Chris, any final words of wisdom for us before we wrap up here?
Yeah, so folks, today we went through what skills are, how you can load them into memory. You also saw how you could manage that as part of your context window. And as you saw from Dan's example, he's really taken every single one of his workflows, private and public, turned that into skills. This is your chance, folks, to go from, chaos to order, pretty much, right? And you see how much time you could potentially save just by creating these skills. So I would hop onto my machine, if you're not already on your machine watching this, and start creating your first skills given the lesson that we went through today. And definitely, if you have time, go through that assignment. that will solidify all your skills, or at minimum, just go through the motions of running the commands that we're listing step by step. But I promise you, and I've seen conference talks on this, people's lives are changed the moment they start creating skills, because they suddenly realize, why am I doing all of these things manually in a way that I can't repeat? It's so much better just to invoke a skill. So yeah, with that said, folks, definitely thank you for tuning in today and hearing me and Dan ramble around this. And we are super excited to welcome you tomorrow to talk more about MCP and agents, because we believe that you can level up even more.
Absolutely. Thanks again, folks. Have a good one.
Thank you all for joining, and thanks again to our speakers. This session is part of a series. To register for future shows and watch past episodes on demand, you can follow the link on the screen or in the chat. We're always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find that link on the screen or in the chat. And we'll see you at the next one.